Hi guys, welcome back to another video of Design System Masterclass. In the previous video, we talked about border radius and their examples and why we use different values of border radius. And we have also created some variables of border radius and applied to these examples. And in today's video, we will talk something about shadows or elevations. Shadows are inspired from real-world object when light falls on any object. For example, if light falls on any object, there will be a shadow forming on the ground. So let me tell you one example. So let's apply shadow to this y as 10, blur as 100. So when you see this object, there is a subtle shadow down it. The light is coming from the top of that object. So the shadow, there will be a subtle shadow forming in the bottom. So I'll decrease the blur and I'll show how the shadow looks like. Something like this. The light will be falling from something like this direction so that the shadow will form on the Y side. I'll explain X, Y, blur and spread and color. I'll explain the properties. So this is the definition of shadow. And coming to the values, so let's take the same example. So when you see it, when you apply the shadow to it, so if we increase the blur to 0 so that you can see it clearly, when you increase the Y, the shadow will move to the Y direction, and when you increase the X, the shadow will move to the X direction. So the blur is nothing but how clear you want to see the shadow. If you increase the blur, the shadow will fade out and we'll get some realistic look for that shadow. And also you can change the color of the shadow. It can be red, and you can change the opacity. And spread is nothing but how the shadow can be spread through all the frame. If I increase the frame, the shadow is spreading across the frame. So that's the shadow properties. And coming to how to create variables, let me delete these. So yeah, so I've created a focus state. This is for inputs. I've created focus state. Coming to different shadows, I've created focus state, which is for inputs, buttons. When you click on the keyboard, when you are on the website, instead of mouse, when you click on the keyboard, there will be some focus state forming around the links, buttons, all of those stuff, right? This is the use case for focus state. And shadow small, shadow medium, shadow large, shadow XL, shadow 2XL, and shadow inner shadow. So let's create variables for this shadows. So go to variables and create a collection, name it as shadows. And these 4 are the number variables, and the last one is the color variable. So number, the first one is focus state. Let's give all small caps. Focus state /x. If you click on slash, it will create a group called focus state, and after slash, that will be the variable name. So I've done focus state /x. So there will be a group called focus. There will be a group created called focus state, and under focus state, x will be the variable. Let's create another variable called y. And value is 0. Let's drag it to focus state. Let's create another variable called blur, and value is 0. Let's create another variable called spread, and value is 2.5. And let's create another variable called color with focus state as group, right? And let's give this as primary 900 so that it can easily switch between dark and light mode. Now let's create for these all shadow small, shadow medium, shadow large, shadow XL, shadow 2XL, and shadow inner. Let's create for all of this. Yeah, it's done. The variables for all of this shadow variance is done. Now let's create actual shadows. Let's take a frame. Let's take this, or else just take this and add drop shadow for X. It will be 1 second. X, it will be focus state X, and focus state Y, and focus state blur, and focus state spread, and it will be primary 900, right? And the second one, let's take it as shadow SMX, shadow Y SMY, shadow SM blur, and shadow SM spread. This will be gray 100. Let me do for all of that. So for inner shadow, you need to select inner shadow instead of drop shadow. So you need to select inner shadow and apply these values. So creating variables is done. So right now we will create styles. So why we need to create styles? So for example, if you want to create a button, let's say button which is having, let's add auto layout to it and fill it with primary 900 and fill the label with gray 0. Let's say this is the button. Let's increase the size, center line, and let's add some border radius, and let's add this as gray 0. And if you want to add the elevation or shadow for this button. So every time you don't need to add effect and drop shadow and select the X values and all of those stuff. So what you can do is you can select these, and beside effects there is this icon called add styles, and when you add the style you can add focus state and create this as a style called shadow SM, and create this style called shadow MD, and create this style called shadow LG. Naming convention will remain same, and create this style called shadow XL, and create this style called shadow 2XL, and create this called shadow N. So when you create these styles, when you want to apply to any component, you can directly go to FX and create SM, or if you want to add 2XL, you can directly add this to the button or any component directly if you create the styles. So the drawback for variables is you cannot, not drawback, it consumes a lot of time. You cannot select the drop shadow and assign every single variable we have assigned. So you can easily create the styles and assign these styles to the components. And also the reason why we have attached another variable to this color variable is you can easily switch between dark and light mode. If you can see this button, this is in light mode, and when you switch to dark mode, the shadow also switches. And if you see and inspect this shadow, there is a white shadow under it, and there is black shadow under it. So yeah, that is it for today. I hope you got some value out of this class. So do subscribe for more valuable content like this, and see you in the next one.